Huff, and I am the university's liaison. I work at North Carolina Central University, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation about the growth mindset. And before we get started, I do want to just share one of the reasons why I feel that this is very important. And also throughout the presentation, I'm going to be giving you some insights on some of the outcomes that we have experienced at J.D. Clement Early College regarding using the growth mindset tools. One of the reasons that I really started doing this was because the J.D. Clement Early College High School that operates on the campus of North Carolina Central University, we start off as our students, they come in as ninth graders. And as ninth graders, we're asking a person that has just left middle school, they're brand new to high school, to also be a college student at the same time. So the transition is a huge gap. So you're basically going from being a middle school student to a college student. And we needed something or to find a way to encourage these students that they could do this and that they could be successful at it. So that's when I started doing a lot of research and talking with people, and was able to purchase a lot of books about the growth mindset. And this is how this particular presentation came about. I've done the presentation before. And one of the things that I found, because as an educator, you know, we don't like recreating a lot of things. But when I found Transforming Education, they are the ones who produced this actual PowerPoint. And you are more than welcome to go to their website. They do have a lot of information about social emotional learning. And they even have a social emotional learning toolkit that you would be able to download and have access to. And I do encourage you all to definitely do a lot of researching about it. So during this session, and I'm going to move something aside, but during this session, we're going to talk about yesterday's theory, we're going to talk about the growth mindset, and we're going to watch a couple of videos. One of the things I do want you to encourage, because normally when I do this presentation, we're face-to-face. So what I'm asking you all to do is there are going to be times when it's going to say, turn to your partner. I would just like for you to use the chat and start actually becoming engaged in the presentation. With this being virtual, I know that it can get a little redundant with, you know, just listening to someone and looking at a PowerPoint. So I'm going to ask you to totally engage in this process. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start a little quiz. So I'm going to be just like a teacher. Students, get out a sheet of paper and we're going to take a quiz. And what I would like for you to do is just number a piece of paper from 1 to 10. And say whether or not you agree or you don't agree or disagree with each one of these statements. And I'm just going to pause for a few minutes. Did everyone have enough time, or do I need just a few more minutes before I go to the scoring? Okay. All right. Several people have said that that was enough time. So give yourself 4 points each time you agreed to these questions. questions 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, and 10. And then subtract 2 points for each time you agreed to questions 2, 5, and 8. And then you're going to add up your scores. And I am definitely watching the chat. And if you are willing, can you start sharing some of your numbers? I'm seeing 6, 10s, 7s, 8s. Oh, wow. Mostly we have a lot of 8s that are coming in. And this is to be expected. If you are not, if you have not really been into the growth mindset and what it does, there are a lot of things that hopefully that you as an educator will get out of this particular training session as well. Because this is not just for students, but this is for parents, this is for teachers, for educators, for everyone. And I thank you so much for participating. Now, only thing in this session is that we're going to just do a deeper understanding of the growth mindset. And this is just one example of the social emotional competencies that we know will help students to succeed. Because right now, most of us deal with the academic side or our content, and we don't really talk about the other skills that students need in order to be successful. And when you're talking about a dual enrollment program, we're going to need the students to know more than just content, because with every class, the content is going to change. So mastering the content is really not enough. And I'm hoping to give you one idea that you can start to implement or use. And there's one I'm going to talk about at the end that I'm really hoping we do begin to practice. And one of the things we will not get is, I am not going to even ask you all about trying a new program and putting in something new in your curriculum. This is a process that we have to work at. And some of the skills that we're going to be focusing on are perseverance, motivation, social awareness, and self-control. These are some things that we don't get in just the content or memorizing the content. These are things that have to go beyond what we normally do in a classroom or what we normally do with students. So I want you to, and you can do the chat, and I'm not going to take a lot of time, but as we go through it, you can, write whatever you need. I want you to think about something that was extremely challenging and it took you a few times to learn. And when you think about that, did you ever think you might not succeed? What process did you go through? And what different learning strategies did you try? And while you are thinking of that, I'm going to keep going because I want to have a lot of time for any questions or comments at the end. There are 2 mindsets. All of this comes from Carol Dweck, and she did studies with basically elementary and middle school students several years ago, and she started noticing a pattern. So she has come up with several books about growth mindset, and I really do encourage you to really read some of the information that she has out there. But basically, students come to your classrooms with 2 mindsets. They're either fixed or they're growth. And most students are in a fixed mindset because just like the scoring that you all did, believe it or not, I do this with students. And of course, the numbers are always in the 1s and 2s. And I've even had students to tell me, Mrs. Huff, you're just talking a whole bunch of baloney. This is just something to try to get us to do more in your class, and it really doesn't work. But by the time they get to the end, that is when they start to notice, you know, there's some things that are changing, and they start to think differently. So a fixed mindset says that your intelligence and your talents are innate traits, and they don't change. And then a growth mindset believes that ability can change with effort, perseverance, and practice. And I know that we do this, especially if any of you are math educators. In math, what do? We give a student a concept, we talk about a problem, you know, we teach them how to solve the problem, and then we tell them to keep practicing. When we give work, usually it's practicing the same type of problem, just with different numbers. And usually the student ends up getting it. We are practicing a growth mindset, especially in our math classes, when we probably should be practicing it all across the board. So we got to think about, our students come to us, and usually when you start talking about first generation students, low socioeconomic status, students that are underrepresented, those type, they may have not been exposed to college in any way, or even have anyone in their household that inspires them to further their education beyond high school. I've even had some students that parents really didn't even see the value of getting a high school degree. So we have to be the ones that are going to bridge this gap and help these students to form a more growth mindset, so that they can start to feel that they can accomplish anything that they desire in their life. It may not happen immediately, but with perseverance, with effort and practice, you can succeed and do whatever you want to do. And this is where we need to get all of our students, that especially in dually enrolled programs, their mindset to be. Looking at these with a mindset, and I want you all to just read, because I'm of course I will be talking through it, but read each side. And which one do you hear the most? Are the statements of a fixed mindset what you hear more from students than the growth mindset? And if you says yes, I agree, because I do in my classes, because I do also at North Carolina Central University, I teach a first year seminar class. And I really do hear students talk about how smart or how dumb they are. I'll never get this. Usually when it comes to content, it's like, why am I studying this? This is no good to me. It's no need of me learning about this. How am I going to use this? So you hear all of the negativity that they bring to the classroom. And we want to try to help to change that. We're going to watch two videos, and I'm not going to even talk about them. I'm just going to go to Terry's story.
So it was a couple of weeks ago, and our dance teacher introduced tap, which I like to dance, but it's more like hip hop or like modern contemporary type of stuff. And tap is very structured, and it's hard especially with making the noises with your shoes. So it was really hard for me to like learn the dances and stuff like that. But when she showed us quick, and I was like, oh, I can't do that. It just looked like a lot of work, and looked like it took a lot of time to learn it, and it was really like high tempo and quick. She basically just took me aside and then told me like, it's just this, but 8 times faster. So what I would do is I would just do that move slowly, and it's a lot of like hitting your ball of the foot and then your heel. So I would like learn to walk around school like that, and I even walk around my house sometimes like with my ball and my heel, and I look funny. So of course I fell a couple of times, and I'm very like clumsy person anyway. So I fell like on stairs once trying to do it. I don't advise dancing on stairs. I had my doubts. At first I thought like, wow, tap dance isn't made for me and I'm not like, it's not my destiny to do tap. But it just, nothing comes after just one try. You have to practice and practice and practice. Because I thought it was going to take me like a year to learn how to do it. But
I'm sorry.
it just came easily. So, well, it didn't come easily. It took like practice. And then once it did start to come easily, I just felt like I finally got this. Like, yeah, I can do it now. Yeah, because the more that you practice a certain skill that you need in a certain class, the better you become at it and the easier it comes to you and the easier the class will be for you to take. And it'll just feel like you're just gaining, you know, I don't know, smartness. I don't think that's a word, but smartness, I guess. In math, we was doing like equations and interior angles and stuff like that, and I just wasn't getting it. But then I thought to myself, like, you can't tell yourself you can't get it. You've only been doing it for 2 days. You need to just practice it and do more equations and stuff like that, and then it'll just come to you, and you'll just be able to do it. Just practice, 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 practice.
Okay, thinking about Terry's story, we can see at the very beginning, she had a fixed mindset. She didn't think she was going to do it, and she was telling herself that she couldn't do it. But what I want you all to think about is what resonated with you in the video and what lessons did you take away from it, if any? Now, there have been a lot of studies on the growth mindset. And these are things that I want to emphasize. And one, I am definitely one of those people that I do not like just reading from a PowerPoint because all of the participants, you all can read. But I just wanted to stress these. The studies have shown that students are more motivated and engaged, even when working in it, work is challenging. They're more likely to review or revise their work. They score better on math and verbal standardized tests, fail fewer classes, and have higher GPAs, are more likely to persist in high school and college. And I'm just going to talk about one of my great stories, of many stories of working with high school students. I have students, of course, they start off as ninth graders, and I work on the university side, but I get to meet them doing their summer bridge. And they are afraid, they are scared, all of and I mean just nervous. I've had students just break down and cry. But I have also seen students using some of the principles of a growth mindset. They've gone from being those scared ninth graders to where they are graduating high school. And a lot of my students are graduating high school with more, and I know most dual enrollment programs, they stress earning 60 or more credit hours, and for community colleges, getting an associate's degree. I work on a 4-year campus, but my students are consistently graduating with anywhere from 70 to 75 credits. And I also have had students this past year that have graduated with more than 80 college credits. And most of them that graduated with the 80 credits, they had a college GPA of a 3.5 and above. So this is my testament that a growth mindset, even though I don't have enough time to do lessons every day to get them involved, but introducing them and talking with them about it and reminding them of it is something that definitely works. Encouraging a growth mindset, the power of praise.
So check this out. Carol Dweck and her colleagues wanted to look into the impacts that praise had on children's development. So what they did is they took over 400 fifth grade students from all across the nation and they did a really simple yet interesting study. Here's how it went down. They gave all the kids a really easy non-verbal IQ test. There were 10 questions, and at the end of the test, they praised all the children in one of two ways. The first group was praised for their intelligence. So they said, "Wow, great job, you must be really smart at this." Now the second group was praised for their effort. So they said, "Wow, great job, you must have worked really hard at this." Now this is a really subtle difference, but the impact it had is incredible. So after praising the kids and getting them divided up into the two groups, they gave them all an option for their next test. The first option was, hey, this next test is going to be a little bit harder, but it's going to be a great opportunity to learn and grow. Now the second option was, this next test will be similar to the first and you will surely do well on it. Now the interesting thing is, out of the group that was praised for their intelligence, 67% of them chose the easier option, while 92% of the kids who were praised for their effort chose the harder test. This is unbelievable to think about, how just the subtle difference in the way that they were praised had such an impact. Carol Dweck explains why this happened.
The child or adult hears, "Oh, you think I'm brilliant and talented. That's why you admire me, that's why you value me. I better not do anything that will disprove this evaluation." As a result, they enter a fixed mindset, they play it safe in the future, and they limit the growth of their talents. Whereas focusing on the strategies they use, the way they're stretching themselves and taking on hard tasks, the intense practice they're doing, those are the kinds of things that say to a child or an older athlete, it's about the process of growth. As a result, they don't feel, oh, if I make a mistake, you won't think I'm talented. They think, oh, if I don't take on hard things and stick to them, I'm not going to grow.
Next, Dweck and her colleagues gave all the kids a really difficult test. It was one that they would surely fail, but they wanted to look at how the different kids attacked this challenge. Dweck noticed that the group that was praised for effort worked harder, longer, and actually enjoyed this test more than the group that was praised for their intelligence. This group got really frustrated with this test and had the tendency to give up early. After this artificially induced failure round, all of the kids were given a third and final test. Now this test was the same level of difficulty as the first one, but check out the results. The group that was praised for their intelligence actually did worse on this test than the first one. Their average score actually dropped by 20%, while the group that was praised for their effort did significantly better, raising their average score by nearly 30%. This is a 50% difference in performance that was caused by a few subtle differences in the way that they were praised. This study shows how praise can either make or break a child's development. I mean, we all do it. We all want to be positive with the children we work with, so teachers, coaches, parents are always looking for ways to support their kids and tend to praise them quite a bit. So we need to look at research like this and realize, okay, praise is a good thing and there's nothing wrong with being positive, but we need to be very careful about praising someone's intelligence or abilities and focus more on the process and the effort that they put forth.
Okay, what can teachers do? We just talked about praise. We can change the way we are praising our students. Instead of telling them all the time how smart they are or how intelligent they are, we can change and give them praise, but praise them more on the hard work that they do. You must have put in a lot of work in order to get this A. Not, you're so smart, see, you got an A. You can change a few words and actually start to change the culture that this student has had most of their lives. Also, you can start displaying work, especially those that are in high school settings. Instead of posting all of the A papers and all of that outside of your door? Why not post work that's in progress? Why not show or even do a timeline of showing where a student started, and maybe if they were writing a paper, where the start paper, where it's all marked up, then the rewrite and the draft, and then show the A. Show the effort that the student had to put in order to get there. Also, you want to work with students to start helping them to understand how the brain is malleable. A lot of students think that what I am is what I was born with, and I can't do anything about it. But we have since learned that the brain changes, the brain can grow, and we have to put forth the effort to make it grow. Also, encourage students to share. Have them we know students love social media. If there's a student that's struggling, have other students to write positive messages. Students who are really in the growth mindset, they can help with this process by sending messages with a growth mindset text in it. When you introduce new material or set a learning goal, say something like, after you do this lesson, I'm going to ask each of you to share a mistake you made while doing your work, because mistakes can help us learn. And that is one of the things that I find that most of our students really fall into. They don't like making mistakes. None of us like failure. But really and truly, the times that you have failed, and if you really think about it, the times that you failed at something or the times that you made mistakes at something, you really ended up growing more than when you were just making the straight A's. Because when everything comes easy, it gives you nothing to reflect on. It gives you nothing to think about. So we need to start looking at our obstacles and our failures as just challenges to overcome. And maybe if I deal with this long enough, hard enough, and stick with it, I'm going to overcome this obstacle, this mistake, or this failure. And when we see ourselves doing it on a regular basis, it starts to become innate. Create a grading rubric focused on effort or process in addition to one focusing on the outcomes. Usually we only give students one rubric, and that's the one focusing on the outcomes. As part of written feedback, tell a student, I'm giving you these comments because I have high expectations, and I know that you can meet them. And what can you do quickly and easily? You can discuss among yourselves, what are some of the things that you can start to do today that is going to assist your students with the development of a growth mindset? The one thing that I always ask people at the end of a session, let's start thinking about how we look at our students and how we praise our students. To me, that is the first place to start. When we start, first of all, believing that every student has the same capability or the same ability to get the job done, we start to deal more with the efforts that the student puts in and not just focus on the smart students. Because one of the things that I noticed, especially during awards time for high school, everyone wants to give an award to the student who consistently got the A's, the student who consistently did well, all of that. But do we ever give an award for effort? Do we really reward students for moving their grades from sometimes a student may come in and they have a D. Do we praise them when they can move that grade up to a C? Or even when they move that C up to a B or the B up to an A? We can start to incorporate this and start praising students more for their effort and perseverance more than their, quote, intelligence. In wrapping up, and I'm so glad this is being recorded, these are just some other things that is here, as well as one of the things I do want to just share at the end. There is a book called Becoming a Growth Mindset School, and where it talks about transforming teaching, leadership, and learning. It is by Chris Hilder. I encourage people to find this book. And if you want to start to change your culture of your school, then you need everyone on board, from administrators on down. And if you can start to do this, you will see a difference in your school. And just a few notes, and I'm not going to just read through it, but the growth mindset research says that they've seen lower failure rates, improved scores, and increased effort. And that is basically all that I have for this presentation. And there is just one other document that I do want to show real quick, because I know we're running out of time. But exposing students to the neuroscience, basically what the growth mindset program does, it allows students to start to increase and improve, because this particular study, and I'll go back, this study was by Teressa Romero, and they said that with the studies, students who practice a growth mindset, they earn more college credit, they had higher grades, and they also did better on higher standardized tests. So I am now down to my last few minutes, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And then I can start looking at the chat. And I know I'm less than 5. Oh my goodness, I opened this up, and the first thing I saw was a thank you. Are there any questions? The only ones that I could probably share right now would be some that I do for my first year seminar, but I don't know if the, and I'm going to ask our host, do the participants have access to any of our email addresses? Because if you could, if you do, you all could email me, and I would be more than happy to share whatever information that I can. And I do have one question: how can we apply this to our own children? And I'm so glad you asked that question, because I have no biological children of my own, but I have 2 nephews. One is 9 and the other one is 13. And one of the things that that I'm with they're my great nephews. One of the things that I have been sharing with their mother is the part about praise. And she has changed her praise to where she is really talking about effort more so than anything. She doesn't talk about one child over the other, but each one of them get the same amount of effort praise. And I will tell you, both little boys, the one that is 13, he is now in the 7th grade, and he is taking 9th grade math. He is also both students are now in the 95 to 99 percentile on the end of course testing. So I guess that's my example of how you can start doing it in your home. Okay, I'm going to share my email in the chat.
And you have until 11:50, so you have plenty of time. If there are more questions or more things to share, then you have plenty of time. So please continue to ask questions in the chat.
Someone asked me the title of the book. Again, I'm going to ask you to email me because I will send you several titles of several books. But the one book is Becoming a Growth Mindset School, How to Change the Culture in Your School. But there are also books by Carol Dweck that I do encourage people to also get a hold of and start actually reviewing the material. Okay. Well, I'm just going to say I really and truly hope that, okay, I'm looking at, it's just 11:36, so we have time. I think I rushed through it thinking that I was running out of time. Is there anything that you all want me to go back over? Because there is a few more minutes that we have left. As a matter of fact, I can share my screen. I really appreciate this session very much. Because what I can do is, I'm going to bring the PowerPoint back up again. And and here's the book, Becoming a Growth Mindset School, The Power of Mindset to Transform Teaching, Leadership, and Learning. And again, in order for you to change the culture of your school, you're going to have everyone to really adapt to the process. And one of the things that we as adults are afraid to do, we don't really like to be honest with students about our failures or our mistakes. And I am definitely one that's different. You know, I share a lot about myself, especially when it came down to education, because it took me quite a bit of time to finish my undergraduate degree. And that was because after 2 car wrecks, I decided to get a job, go to work. I didn't think education was going to be the gracious thing for me. I just say, look at where I'm at now. And being a teacher, when I first started teaching, the principal, I did a substitute teaching job, and the principal came to me and said, don't you want to teach? And I told her, I said, I'm substituting because I really don't know if I like children. And again, she said, but you are a natural. And in that state, I had not gone to college to even get a teacher's license. I was a political science major, and I had a corporate career for many, many years and worked for 2 of the top 10 law firms in Washington, D.C. And when my law firm decided to move to the West Coast, I had my parents here on the East Coast, and I didn't want to go. So I had to find another career. And that's when education came. And when the principal, you know, said that I was a natural, I started to believe what she was saying. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And luckily, I was in Maryland at the time, and Prince George's County paid for me to take all my education courses. And they paid for me to get all of my certifications to where in less than 3 years, I was able to get my license as a teacher in the state of Maryland. So again, I share all of this with my students to let them know that life is not the easiest thing for anybody. But if we work on it, and if we persevere, we will be able to overcome whatever challenges. Now, one of the things that I do want to say is that there, in my reading about growth mindset, there was a research, and I have to find the name of it, where they were saying that when we start praising and when we continue to praise students for making the A's and being the smart student and being the intelligent student, we actually are starting to encourage students to do things dishonestly. because they want to get that recognition all the time and do not want to disappoint, we are leading students, and I'm saying that they're really going to do it, but we tend to be leading students to become students that cheat or deceive in order for them to always look smart and intelligent in the eyes of those that admire them. If we start praising effort more and perseverance more, then we lessen that chance of a student wanting to have to do things illegally just to show that they're good. So again, this is just something that we need to start to establish within our lives. And now I'm going to stop sharing again and see if they're. And yes, I would tell you anything that deals with grit, perseverance, growth mindset. I do the TED Talks. I watch them all the time. Some people can call me a nerd because I don't really watch television. Anything that I can start passing on to the students, that's going to help them succeed. Because, you know, I'm right now, I'm doing advising with the high school seniors because they're getting ready to go to, getting ready to decide because they get ready to graduate high school and decide what college they're going to. And I'll share it with you because like I say, it's nothing I'm ashamed of, but I asked them that because of the number of credits that they've received, you know, if they remain at North Carolina Central University, who's going to accept all their credits, they have the possibility of getting their degree maybe a year and a half or definitely 2 years after high school graduation. And I tell them, students, you need to finish your academic pursuits before life begins. And when I say life begins usually when you start to take on the job, when you take on a husband or wife, when the children start coming, when you have a house to take care of, when you have the car payment, car insurance, all those things, that's life beginning. And if you all as adults know, once these things come into your life, then usually your educational dreams are put on the back burner. So I have students right now that I have shown them how they're able to get their master's or their doctorate degrees by the time they're 25 years old. And if they can go ahead and do this before they're 25, and if you can come up with a doctorate degree before you get 25, and this is what I share, I have taken all the coursework for my doctorate degree. But because of my husband, my house, my job, I am not able to get through the dissertation right now. So I don't have my doctorate degree yet. And I only have a few more years before I'm ready to retire. So I'm starting to have second thoughts. Do I really want to get that degree or not? Because I'm getting ready to hang it up for a while. So I share this with my students, and I share it because I want them to see the opportunity that they have being a dual enrolled student. When I talk to parents, because I do meet with students and I meet with parents, because one of the things that I do on the college end is all of my students, because they're high school students, they have a consent form to be in compliance with the FERPA agreement, and I do talk to parents. And the parents are so excited about knowing that their child has this type of opportunity because they selected to come to an early college program or to be a dually enrolled student.
This has been great information, and people have been asking, could you please put your email in the chat when you get a chance?
Oh, sure. I will do it one more time.
Okay, great. And you have an offer for an accountability partner for your dissertation.
I thank you because I'm definitely going to need one.
Oh my gosh, you have to do it together. I mean, it's such a lonely process.
Yes, it is, because I was able to get to the first 3 chapters, believe it or not. And it was like so many things started to happen. And I said, okay, I'm gonna put it down. And I did put it down with the intent of picking it back up. And I have just I have allowed, and it's me. I have allowed other things to always get in the way.
Well, I think that's a perfect example of how, you're talking about life beginning and that our students have this opportunity when they're young, and, to be able to capitalize on the early college, the dual enrollment experience is such a wonderful opportunity. And especially as they tap into that growth mindset.
Yes. And I'm going to truly, and I hope that I didn't go too fast, because I really was trying to stay mindful of time. And I hope that what I shared with you is something that you would investigate, look more into, and definitely start to, on a subtle way, start practicing some of the things that we talked about today, so that eventually, as you move up in your career, that you can start to make sure that you have a growth mindset. Because I really have seen how it does work. And I have seen the success of students who really and truly thought that they couldn't do it come out. I mean, I even have one young man at North Carolina Central, and of course, if you look it up, you'll see him. But he was an early college student, and he actually could have graduated in 2 years after he graduated high school from college, but he wanted to stay another year, so that he can get do a double degree or a double major. And he is now the student body president. Not only is he the student body president, but he was also appointed to the White House HBCU initiative. So again, the sky is the limit. It's just that we've got to change how we think about life, how we think about, even things that happen, everyday things. You get in a fender bender, a car accident. Your reaction is going to determine how you're going to deal with that situation. Are you going to let it get the best of you that day? Or are you going to say, this happened, get the insurance information, blah, 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 what you got to do, and you keep moving forward. And don't dwell on that, because the car may be total, or it could just have a scratch, but you can always get another one. But the main thing about it is you have yourself, you lived. So anyway.
In our last couple of minutes, your email is not showing up in the chat.
Oh, it's not?
No. So if you want to call it out, I can.
Oh, you know what? And there's a reason why. I am so sorry. It was automatically set, not to everyone.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, and I would like to thank our presenter so much for presenting on this growth mindset. Also, the perspective of the HBCU and the early college in the university setting. Those are all things that we don't get to hear from often enough. So thank you so much for your presentation today. And thanks to everybody for attending the session. Enjoy the next hour for lunch, whatever that looks like for you. And our first panel discussion of the day will be at 1 o'clock, and that will be a student parent panel. So something that you don't want to miss. So again, thank you so much for everyone's participation today, and we will see you again at 1 o'clock.